Annie Ego was a blind girl, and everyone in her community hated and rejected her. After her parents died in a car accident, her greedy uncle Udochi took her family's property and left her alone. She was hungry and lonely, so one day she decided to visit her uncle for help. On the way, she met a new girl named Chizoba, who became her friend and offered to help. But when they reached Udochi's house, he pushed her out and told her never to return. On their way back, a car hit Annie Ego and Chizoba. The driver, Chuka, stopped and took them to the hospital. He paid all the bills and stayed to make sure Annie Ego was safe. Chuka felt bad about the accident and wanted to help her recover. At the hospital, Chuka apologized to Annie Ego, saying, "I never meant to hurt you. I will do everything to help you get better." Annie Ego was touched by his kindness and said, "Thank you for helping me. I trust you are a good person." Chizoba, however, tried to take Annie Ego home early, even though the doctor said she needed more treatment. Annie Ego trusted Chizoba and agreed to live with her, believing Chizoba cared about her. But Chuka started to feel something was off about Chizoba. She seemed too controlling and eager to take Annie Ego home, even against medical advice. "Now I can give the chief what he wants and become the richest girl of all," Chizoba thought to herself as she watched Annie Ego sleep, her expression unreadable. "Doctor, are you really letting the blind girl leave the hospital? You know it's too soon, and it's not safe," Chuka said as he walked with the doctor toward his office. "She made that decision on her own. You saw it too. I can't force her to stay for treatment. I have other patients who are willing to cooperate, and honestly, I'm done dealing with her. I'll just let her go," Dr. Obi replied, sounding frustrated. The doctor picked up some medicines from his desk and went back to Chizoba. He handed her the medications and gave her instructions. "These are all the medicines Annie Ego will need when you take her home. Make sure she doesn't miss a single dose," the doctor said. "Thank you, doctor. Don't worry, I'll follow your instructions, and my friend won't skip any doses," Chizoba replied as she took the medications. After that, the doctor left to attend to other patients. Meanwhile, Chuka tried his best to convince Annie Ego to stay and complete her treatment, but she refused. She insisted on going home with Chizoba, saying she wasn't feeling any pain. Chuka finally understood that Annie Ego had made up her mind. No matter what he said, she wasn't going to stay. "My car is parked outside. If you're leaving, let me drive you home instead of taking a taxi. It's the least I can do," Chuka offered. "Chuka, you're not taking us anywhere. I don't trust you anymore. You might cause another accident like last time. You need to improve your driving skills before someone else gets hurt," Chizoba said sharply. "Chizoba, it's fine. The last accident wasn't his fault. It was just bad luck. Everyone makes mistakes. Let him drive us home this time. I'm sure he'll be careful," Annie Ego said calmly. Chizoba hesitated, but eventually agreed. She didn't want to argue further, as it might raise suspicions. "All right, Chuka, you can drive us, but be careful. Don't put our lives at risk," she said with an annoyed expression. Chizoba helped Annie Ego get out of the hospital bed. Annie Ego looked weak and moved slowly, but she pretended to be fine. Chizoba led her out of the hospital. Chizoba led her out of the hospital. Chuka quickly packed their remaining belongings and took them to the car. He stood by the car, waiting for Chizoba to bring Annie Ego. Chuka felt uneasy, thinking it might not be safe for Annie Igo to leave the hospital. Once everyone was in the car, Chuka started driving. He kept noting the streets they passed, making sure he'd remember the way to Annie Ego's house if he needed to return. They eventually arrived at a quiet, empty compound surrounded by tall, overgrown bushes. So, this is where the blind girl lives alone. She's been through so much, Chuka thought as he got out of the car, his gaze lingering on the worn-out walls of the small house. Thank you for everything, Chuka. I'm fine now that I'm with my friend. I appreciate all you've done, Annie Igo said as they entered the house. Chizoba scanned the room carefully, observing every corner. The house was simple, with a single table and two wooden chairs. She was lost in thought when she felt someone tap her shoulder. She turned around and saw Chuka. I'll be leaving now. Take good care of her and call me if there's an emergency, Chuka said. I don't think I'll ever call you. I can take care of my friend myself, Chizoba replied coldly. I don't know why you think I'm a bad person. I just want the best for her, Chuka said softly. After that, Chuka left and drove home. His mother, Amaka, was furious. I dropped them off, but Chizoba is still upset with me. I don't understand why, Chuka said. My son, that Chizoba, is hiding something. I don't trust her, Amaka replied, her eyes narrowing as she spoke. Mom, I think you're right. Annie Igo shouldn't be with someone like her. I feel like she's planning something, but I can't figure out what, Chuka said, pacing the living room. Whatever it is, it's not your problem. Stay out of it, Ameka warned, her tone firm. But, Mom, stay out of it, Chuka. Focus on finding a new job, Amaka insisted. All right, Mom, Chuka said as he walked upstairs. But in his mind he thought, I need to keep an eye on Annie Ego. Back at Annie Ego's house, Chizoba said, Annie Ego, you should take a bath. I'll fetch some water for you. Just sit and relax. Chizoba, I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you for everything, Annie Ego said with a smile. I'm always here for you, Chizoba replied as she went outside with a bucket. Once outside, Chizoba made sure no one was around. She took out her phone and called the chief. Hello, Chief, she said. Chizoba, what's the update? The chief asked. The target is completely under my control. Everything is going as planned, Chizoba replied confidently. Good job. I'll be expecting the package, the chief said. Chizoba ended the call. She grabbed the bucket of water and returned inside the house. Annie Ego, I'm so sorry I took so long to bring the water. I had to fix the tap because it wasn't working properly. Chizoba lied with ease. She carried the water to the bathroom and then came back. All right, my dear friend, everything is ready now. Let me help you freshen up, Chizoba said with a reassuring tone. After the shower, Annie Ego felt refreshed and rested on the couch. Chizoba, on the other hand, headed to the kitchen to prepare some food. The kitchen was covered in layers of dust since it hadn't been used for a long time, especially after the tragic passing of Annie Ego's parents. Chizoba cleaned the kitchen thoroughly before beginning to cook. As she prepared the food, her mind was racing. How will I take Annie Ego out of this town without anyone noticing? I need to deliver her to Chief as soon as possible, she thought. She quickly prepared boiled yam, which she had purchased while they were on their way home earlier. Once the food was ready, Chizoba pulled out a small packet from her clothes. It contained a strange substance, which she sprinkled over Annie Ego's plate of food. Smiling wickedly, she whispered to herself, "Sweet dreams, blind one." Chizoba carried the food to Annie Ego with a cheerful voice, saying, "Hey, guess what? The food is ready. I made a delicious boiled yam for you. Come on, have a taste." And I go, completely trusting Chizoba, had no idea about the substance in the food. She happily ate it, enjoying the first proper meal she had in a long time. However, not long after eating, Annie Ego started to feel uneasy. She struggled to sit upright. "Chizoba, something doesn't feel right. I think I'm getting very sleepy." She trailed off mid-sentence and fell asleep on the couch. "Perfect timing," Chizoba exclaimed. "Now I can search for what I need without any interruptions." She wasted no time and began searching the entire house. Chizoba combed through every corner for nearly 30 minutes but didn't find what she was looking for. Frustrated, she decided to check the second room. Just as she was about to enter, there was a knock at the door. Quickly, Chizoba rushed to cover Annie Ego with a blanket, making her look as though she was peacefully asleep. She composed herself and went to answer the door. Standing there was Chuka. "Chuka, what are you doing here? You were just here a few hours ago. Why are you back?" Chizoba asked, irritation clear in her voice. "I just wanted to check on Annie Ego one more time before heading to bed," Chuka replied, trying to look past Chizoba and into the house. "Well, that's nice of you, but Annie Ego is already asleep. She doesn't need any disturbances. Please just go home and don't come back. I told you I can take care of her," Chizoba said, blocking his view. "Can I at least see her? Just to make sure she's safe," Chuka insisted, still trying to peek inside. "Are you saying I'm not capable of taking care of my friend? Or do you think she's not safe with me? I won't tolerate such accusations from you anymore," Chizoba snapped angrily. Realizing he wasn't going to win this argument, Chuka reluctantly walked back to his car and drove off. Watching him leave, Chizoba muttered under her breath, "That man is becoming a real problem. If he keeps interfering, I may have to get rid of him. I won't let anyone ruin my plans." She slammed the door shut and returned to the second room to continue her search. After a few more minutes of searching, Chizoba finally found what she was looking for, a small box hidden in a drawer. She held it up and smiled. "This is exactly what Chief wanted." "Mission part 1 complete," she said triumphantly. Excited, she pulled out her phone and called Chief. "Hello, Chief," she said. "Chizoba, do you have any updates?" Chief asked. "Yes, Chief. I found the box you mentioned. It's safe and intact," Chizoba replied confidently. "The box isn't as important as the blind girl. I need her here within 2 days. Bring her to me tomorrow," Chief said bluntly, before hanging up. Chizoba stared at the phone, annoyed. "If the box isn't important, why did he make me look for it? Chief can be so confusing sometimes," she muttered. She began pacing the room, thinking, how will I get Annie Igo out of this town without anyone noticing? Meanwhile, Chuka was at home, unable to sleep. He kept tossing and turning, thoughts of Chizoba filling his mind. She's definitely hiding something, and I'll find out what it is, he said to himself before eventually falling asleep. The next morning, Chizoba woke up and dressed in a completely different outfit. Today is the day I'm taking Annie Igo to Chief. Whether she wants to go or not, she thought. Chizoba went to wake Annie Igo and said, we're going on a little trip to a faraway place. A faraway place? Why are we going there? Annie Igo asked, confused. It's been so long since you went out. I want to take you somewhere special so you can enjoy yourself like everyone else, Chizoba said, forcing a smile. That's so kind of you. I'm truly grateful for everything you've done for me. You've treated me like family, even though we've only just met, Annie Igo replied with a smile. Don't worry about it. Let's go now so we can get there on time, Chizoba said, helping Annie Igo out of the house. The early morning darkness worked in Chizoba's favor, as most people were still asleep. Chizoba led Annie Igo to a car she had hidden nearby. Since Annie Igo was blind, she couldn't tell whose car it was or who was driving. Chizoba started the car and drove out of town, heading straight to Chief's house. By the time they arrived, it was daylight. The gate to Chief's house opened, and Chizoba drove inside. She helped Annie Igo out of the car and led her into the house. Annie Igo, we're here. You're going to have a great time here, Chizoba said with fake enthusiasm. Oh, really? I'm so happy you brought me out, Annie Igo said, smiling. Chizoba led Annie Igo into the living room and waited for Chief to appear. After a few moments, an older man entered, smiling warmly. Chizoba, I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. You've done well, Chief said. Yes, Chief. This is Annie Igo, and she's yours now. You can do whatever you want with her, Chizoba said. Annie Igo, confused and frightened, asked Chizoba, what's going on? Why did you bring me here? Shut up, Annie Igo. From now on, you belong to Chief. Do as he says. Chizoba barked. Tears streamed down Annie Igo's face. How could you do this to me? I trusted you. I thought you were my friend, she said, her voice trembling. Look at her tears, Chief. You're lucky to have her. She's stunning, Chizoba said mockingly. Chief grinned. You've done well, Chizoba. I'll transfer your payment immediately, he said, taking out his phone. After confirming the transaction, Chief said, now, take her to my room. I want to enjoy what I just bought. Take the blind girl to my bedroom so I can enjoy what I paid for, Chief commanded. These words sent a chill down Annie Igo's spine. She thought about running, but being blind, she couldn't see her way. Fighting back wasn't an option either. How could she fight without sight? She fell to her knees and began begging the Chief. Please, I'm just a poor blind girl. I have nothing to offer you. Don't do this to me. Please, Annie Igo pleaded desperately. The Chief smirked. Oh, you have something very special to offer me. Don't worry, you might even enjoy it too, he said with a cruel laugh. Then he turned to Chizoba. Take her to my bedroom. Annie Igo turned her face toward Chizoba. Chizoba, I know you're still a good person. There's kindness in you, I know it. Please don't let him do this to me. I'm a woman like you, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Keep quiet, beautiful one, and don't call me your friend anymore. Nobody is coming to save you. Just listen to the chief and do whatever he says, Chizoba said coldly. She grabbed Anigo and started dragging her toward the bedroom. Anigo tried to pull back, but she was too weak compared to Chizoba. All she could do was cry and beg, but Chizoba ignored her pleas. Instead, she mocked the blind girl, making cruel jokes about her helplessness. Chizoba pushed Anigo into the bedroom and locked the door behind her. She returned to the living room, smirking. Chief, the girl is in your bedroom now. She's all yours, but take it easy on her in case she tries to resist, Chizoba said with a sly grin. Chizoba, I must say, you've done an excellent job. I'll let you know if I have more work for you in the future, the chief replied, shaking hands with her. Chizoba left the house, got into her car, and drove off feeling pleased with herself. She couldn't stop smiling, thinking about the money she had received for delivering Anigo. Chuka! Chuka! His mother's voice called out, snapping him awake. He sat up in bed and looked at the clock. Oh no, it's already past 10. How did I sleep so late? He exclaimed, quickly getting out of bed. Chuka, we have to go meet your boss and ask him to give you one last chance, and here you are still in bed at this hour, Amaka scolded him. Mom, I'm sorry. Yesterday was very exhausting, but honestly, I don't think I can go to my boss today. I have something more important to handle, Chuka replied. What? What could possibly be more important than your job? Listen to me. I don't want to hear another word. Go get ready. We're going to see your boss, his mother said firmly. I need to check on Anigo, Chuka thought to himself. That means I'll have to handle the meeting with my boss quickly and then rush to her house. Reluctantly, he got dressed and went with his mother to meet his boss. Together they explained why Chuka had missed the meeting. Luckily, the boss accepted their apology and allowed Chuka to return to work. Chuka was thrilled to have his job back, but immediately remembered Anigo. I need to get to her house now, he thought urgently. The chief entered his bedroom and saw Anigo lying on the bed crying. Please don't touch me, she pleaded, her voice trembling. The chief wasn't moved by her tears. He pushed her down and violated her while she cried and begged him to stop. For Anigo, it was the most heartbreaking and painful experience of her life. She had never been with anyone before. When it was over, Anigo curled up on the bed, crying uncontrollably. She whispered a prayer, asking God to take her life so she wouldn't have to endure such suffering. Don't cry, beautiful. This was just a little taste of what I paid for. I will be back to enjoy the rest after my shower, the chief said smugly as he left the room. As he opened the door, he heard the sound of the parlor door being thrown open. Standing there was Chuka, his face filled with rage. Where is she? Where are you keeping her? Chuka shouted at the chief. Wait, how did you even get into my house? The chief asked, shocked. Chuka raised his hand, signaling to the police officer standing behind him. They entered the room and found Anigo on the bed, crying. Sir, you're under arrest for kidnapping and abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court, one of the officers said as they handcuffed the chief. Amma rushed to Anigo's side. I'm so sorry I came late. I knew Chizoba was up to something, so I planted a recorder in your house. It allowed me to hear her conversations, which is how I found out about her plans with the chief, Amma explained gently. Annie Eagle didn't respond. She just kept crying, unable to process what had happened. Chuka looked around, but couldn't find Chizoba. She had already left by the time he arrived. Where could Chizoba be hiding? Chuka wondered, his mind racing with thoughts. Annie Eagle sat on the bed, half-dressed, her clothes in disarray. Tears streamed down her face as she cried. Seeing her in that state, Amma's heart sank and his curiosity grew. Annie Eagle, tell me that horrible man didn't do anything to you. Please tell me it's not what I'm thinking. Your clothes are not properly on you. Did he touch you? Amma asked, his voice heavy with concern. Annie. Igo lowered her head in shame. The thought of explaining what had happened filled her with despair. She could hardly believe it herself. Yes, Amma. Yes, he did. I tried my best to stop him, but I'm powerless without my sight. He forced himself on me, Anigo admitted, her voice trembling. Amma clenched his fists as anger burned through him. Without another word, he stormed into the parlor, where the police were preparing to take the chief away. Before you take this shameless man, I have a few questions for him, Amma said, his voice shaking with rage. He turned to the chief. What was her crime? What has an innocent blind girl done to you? Why did you target her when there are so many other women in the town? Amma demanded. The chief smirked and replied coldly. Young man, I don't owe you any answers. This is just how I live my life. I prefer blind women because they are more loyal and humble than the others. Furious, Amma slapped the chief hard across the face and grabbed him by his shirt. You're a monster in human skin. Who knows how many girls' lives you've ruined? You'll never come out of prison again to harm anyone else. Amma shouted. Ha! You're just a naive kid. I'll be out of that prison before you even realize it, the chief said smugly. Amma ignored his taunt and added, and as for that accomplice of yours, Chizoba, I know you won't tell us where she's hiding, but I'll find her. Laughing, the chief replied, Of course I won't tell you. I still need her for more jobs. Enough! The police officer interrupted. He grabbed the chief and dragged him outside. The police van, along with 7 officers, was waiting outside. They secured the chief and drove him to the station for questioning and further action. Amma returned to the bedroom and gently helped Annie Ego up. She was in visible pain and could barely walk. Amma carried her to his car and drove her to the nearest hospital. The doctor conducted a thorough checkup and reassured Amma that Annie Ego would recover, but it would take time. What she experienced is beyond ordinary, it's traumatic, the doctor explained. Annie Ego stayed in the hospital for 2 days, with Amma by her side the entire time. He refused to leave until she was well enough to go home. 2 days later, the doctor discharged her, declaring her strong enough to leave. Amma settled the hospital bills and helped Annie Ego into his car. While driving, Ama's phone rang. "Hello, officer," Ama answered. "Hello, Mr. Ama. We've been interrogating the chief, but he's refusing to give any information about Chizoba. He's very stubborn, but we're working hard to get him to talk before taking him to court," the officer reported. "Please don't stop. Make sure he talks. We need Chizoba to face justice for what she's done," Ama urged before ending the call. Ama soon arrived at his house. He parked the car and helped Anigo out. He decided against taking her back to her own house as it was unsafe and there would be no one to care for her. As he entered the house, his mother, Amaka, was sitting on the couch. She stood up, visibly upset. "Ama, oh my God, where have you been for the past 2 days? I called you so many times, but you didn't answer," she said angrily. "Mom, I'm sorry. It's a long story. Annie Ego was in serious trouble, and I had to save her. I didn't mean to worry you," Amma explained. Amaka grabbed his arm and pulled him to a corner. "Are you out of your mind, Amma? Why would you bring that blind girl into this house? I told you to stay away from her," she hissed. "Mom, she needs help. Chizoba betrayed her and put her in harm's way. There's so much you don't know. Annie Ego has to stay with us," Amma said firmly. "Over my dead body. I won't let a blind, cursed woman stay under my roof. No way," Amaka shouted. Before Amma could respond, his phone rang again. It was the police. "Hello?" Amma said. "Amma, we've managed to get the chief to talk. We have some information about Chizoba and where she might be hiding. You need to come down here immediately," the officer said. "All right, I'm on my way," Amma replied. He turned to his mother. "Mom, I have to go. Please just be kind to Annie Ego and make her comfortable," he pleaded before leaving the house. As soon as Amma left, Amaka stormed into the kitchen and grabbed a bucket of water. She returned to the living room and poured the water all over Annie Ego. "Now get out of my house. Your life is cursed, and that's why you keep facing one problem after another. You won't live under the same roof as me. Leave now," Amaka shouted angrily. "This house isn't big enough for me, and a witch like you. I won't allow my son to bring a cursed person into my home," Amaka spat, glaring at the blind girl. Annie Ego sat there, dripping wet, stunned by Amaka's harsh words. She had hoped that living with Amma and his family would finally end her misery, but instead it seemed like her problems had only worsened. With her dignity shattered, she slowly stood up, choosing not to say a word in her defense. But Amaka wasn't done. She marched closer to Annie Ego, shoving her towards the door. "Stay away from my son, you witch. You've caused enough damage to him already," she yelled, dragging Annie Ego as if she were a piece of furniture. Annie Ego, unable to see where she was going, stumbled and fell to the ground. The fall left her injured, with blood trickling from a cut on her head. "Please don't hurt me anymore. I'll leave. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am cursed. My life has been nothing but one problem after another." Annie Ego cried, her voice breaking with despair. Amaka called out to her housemaid, "Take this girl out of my house right now. Make sure she never steps foot here again," she commanded. The maid hesitated briefly, looking at Annie Ego with pity. but eventually obeyed. She led the blind girl out of the house and abandoned her outside the gate, leaving her to fend for herself. Annie Ego sat by the gate, unsure of what to do. She had no way of finding her way back to her own home, and no one to guide her. The sun blazed down on her, and the heat was unbearable, but she had no choice but to remain where she was, sitting alone under the scorching sun. This heartbreaking story teaches us the importance of compassion, integrity, and vigilance in the face of evil. Annie Ego's trust in Chizoba led to betrayal and suffering, reminding us to be cautious about whom we trust. However, Chuka's persistence and Ama's bravery demonstrate the power of standing up against injustice to protect the vulnerable. Amaka's prejudice and cruelty highlight the damaging impact of societal biases against disabilities, showing the need for kindness, inclusivity, and challenging harmful stereotypes. The story also emphasizes that silence allows evil to thrive, while courage and action, like those shown by Ama and Chuka, can bring justice and hope. Let this serve as a call to always act with integrity and defend those who cannot defend themselves. Thank you for watching my channel. Remember to stand up for what is right and treat others with kindness and respect, especially those who are vulnerable or marginalized. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video to spread awareness about these valuable lessons. Stay tuned for more captivating and thought-provoking stories. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's work together to create a better world. See you in the next video. In the previous part, the story unfolded in a luxurious mansion where secrets and hidden desires disrupted the lives of its residents. Ola and Jide, both married to Chief Amara, found themselves drawn to Kola, a member of the household staff, leading to moments of passion and complex emotions. As they discovered their unexpected pregnancies, their rivalry for Kola's affection intensified, while the looming threat of Chief Amara uncovering their secrets added to the tension. With emotions running high, their choices set the stage for inevitable conflicts and life-altering consequences that could unravel everything. Stay tuned to see how the story unfolds with even more drama and unexpected twists ahead. The idea of sharing him with Ola felt unbearable. He set his glass on the counter and closed his eyes, his mind racing with plans. His eyes thinking of a plan soon after Jeed slipped away to find Kola. He found him in a small corridor, polishing a metal handle for a cabinet. The faint sound of soft footsteps echoed in the hallway, amplifying the tension in the air. He walked up quietly, noticing the way Kola's hands moved deftly over the surface. "Kola," he said, folding his arms across his chest. "I hear you've been helping Ola with a window in his room. Is that correct?" Kola froze for a moment, then turned to face him. "Yes, sir. He asked me to fix it." He avoided Jeed's piercing gaze, his hand tightening around the cloth he was using. Jeed studied his face. He saw a flicker of worry in his eyes. The silence between them seemed to stretch heavy with unspoken thoughts. "I also need your help. Can you come to my sitting room? There's something I want you to move." Kola nodded. "Yes, sir." Without another word, Jeed led him to his private sitting room. It was a cozy space with a sofa, a small table, and tall windows that let in the dim afternoon light. The faint aroma of cologne lingered in the air. Once inside, he closed the door softly, the click of the latch unnervingly loud in the quiet room. Kola looked around, noticing no heavy boxes or furniture to move. "What did you need me to move, sir?" he asked, setting his cloth aside on the small table. Jeed's eyes softened, but his stance remained firm. He stepped closer, his tone quiet. "There is no furniture to move. I just wanted to speak with you." Kola swallowed hard. "Oh, right, sir." Jeed took a deep breath. "Should I tell him about the baby?" he wondered. Part of him was scared. Another part of him felt a burning desire to keep Kola close. He chose his words carefully. "Kola, I know I'm asking a lot from you," he said, looking into his eyes, "but I want to make sure we understand each other. The time we spent together, it meant a lot to me. I don't want Ola getting between us." Kola looked away, guilt tugging at his chest. "Sir, I never meant to cause trouble," he said softly. "I'm just doing my job." Jeet felt tears sting his eyes, but he held them back. "I'm not blaming you," he whispered. I want you to be careful. If we get caught, it will be bad for both of us. And I don't want Ola stealing your attention." Kola ran a hand over his hair. "I understand, sir." Jeet reached out and held his hand. He could feel his heart beating in his throat. He leaned closer, pressing his forehead against his. In that moment, all his anger and fear mingled. He felt the need to secure Kola's loyalty, to make sure he wouldn't be swayed by Ola's charms. Without warning, a knock sounded at the door. Both of them sprang apart. The door opened just a crack, and Bay's voice drifted in. "Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you, but Ola is asking for you in the main living room. He says it's urgent." Jeet gave Kola one last look, then cleared his throat. "Yes, I'll be right there," he said. He straightened his shirt, and Kola quickly grabbed his polishing cloth. They both tried to appear normal as he opened the door. Bay pretended not to notice anything and walked away, leaving Jeed and Kola behind. Jeed hurried to the living room, his nerves on edge. He found Ola standing by the sofa, arms folded, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" Jeed asked sharply, keeping his voice low. Ola forced a quick smile. "Chief Amara called. She said she wants us to prepare for a guest tonight. Some business partner will be staying for dinner." Jeed exhaled, relieved it wasn't something more serious. "All right, I'll speak with the cook." Ola stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "I notice you've been busy lately, Jide, always giving the staff extra instructions. Is there anything you'd like to share with me?" Jeed's stomach twisted, but he kept a calm face. "I am simply taking care of the house. You could do the same." Ola smiled sweetly, though his eyes were cold. Of course. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." Then he leaned in, his voice dropping. "I'd keep an eye on Kola if I were you. We wouldn't want him to be distracted, would we?" Jeed's heart raced. He realized that Ola was hinting at something, maybe suspecting a closeness with Kola. But Jeed refused to show fear. Instead, he shrugged. "Kola knows his duties." Ola stepped back, a smug smile on his lips. "Yes, he does. Excuse me now." He brushed past Jeed and left the room. Alone, Jeed clenched his fists. This was no longer just a simple attraction. Now it was a power struggle between two pregnant husbands, each determined to keep Kola for himself. And with Chief Amara in the dark, the secrets kept growing deeper. Neither Jide nor Ola knew how close they were to being found out. Their daily games of spying and manipulation were about to